Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us.
Welcome back to the ANEW Insight Podcast. We're back for the second half of our interview with overeating specialist and psychologist, Dr. Glenn Livingston. Glenn gave us some really invaluable insight into his history with overeating, how he was able to overcome that, and what inspired his eighth book, you guys, his eighth book. So, Dr. Glenn, welcome back.
I like to write. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me back.
Yes. So give me a picture of the structure of Defeat Your Cravings. Kind of give me the overview of what people can glean from the book. And then we're going to go into some more specifics and veer off into other areas.
You would start with one simple rule. And let me just say that in the book itself, there are a lot of ways to address concerns over rules. And I know that probably a lot of people listening will have concerns over rules, but let's just assume you can get over that. I'd have you start with one simple rule. This is something that you could and would do that wouldn't be too burdensome, but will really let you know that you're moving the ship in the right direction. I'll never go back for seconds again, or I'll always put my fork down between bites, or I'll only have pretzels at Major League Baseball stadiums, something like that. Or I always put my gym clothes out before I go to bed. You want a low bar because what most people tend to do is set up a whole diet with high bars, a difficult thing to do because they really want to get the weight off fast. And besides the fact that puts you in a feast and famine environment and your brain's going to want to hoard food the moment that you break, it's also difficult to maintain. It's easy to maintain when you have your mojo, but one day you're going to wake up without your mojo and just not feel like it. And if you have a low bar, then you can jump over it when you don't have your mojo as well as when you do. The reason that's important is that you trigger what we might call the identity function. So if you see yourself putting your gym clothes out every night before you go to bed, after a month, you're going to start saying to yourself, I must be someone who wants to go to the gym. I must be someone who wants to go to the gym. I wonder what else someone who wants to go to the gym might do. And before you know it, you're drinking a little more water, or doing a couple of push-ups before you go to bed, or, actually going to the gym. And you've got this identity that really directs your behavior. Identity is a collection of character traits. A character trait is nothing more than what you do at the moment of temptation habitually. And so you're developing this as a personality so that you don't have to white knuckle it all the time. This is just who I am. You ask people, could you give up chocolate forever? They'll say, absolutely not. You ask them, could you become a person who doesn't eat chocolate? They'll say, maybe. Really interesting. So once you have that one simple rule in place, you use it to bifurcate your thoughts. So any thought that suggests that you will follow the rule is your higher self or you. Any rule that suggests that you're going to break the rule, any thought that suggests you're going to break the rule is your lower self or your food monster or your inner pig or whatever you want to call it. It sounds kind of silly. If you don't know when these thoughts are active, then you don't know when you have to take action. And so setting up this kind of an alarm makes all the difference in the world. Once you set up that bifurcation, then you start to listen for that rebellious part of you this is what we want. We want to stimulate that rebellious part. You start to listen for what it might be saying. When you hear it say something like, oh, come on, it's genetic, your parents were fat, so you're doomed. You say, wait a minute, that's not me, that's my inner pig. Let me take a breath. Let me breathe in for a count of 7 and out for a count of 11. I'm not doing it now because it takes some time, but that helps to get you into your relaxed self, into your parasympathetic nervous system. Another way of saying that is that it tells your brain that there is no emergency. Remember, overeating is your brain thinking that binging is going to keep you alive. That chocolate bar is going to keep you alive. And that there's an emergency that it hasn't right now. That's what people feel like they're not there. That's why they feel like it's so automatic. So we're trying to de-automate that. So you breathe in for a count of 7 and out for a count of 11. The reason that works is that if you were being chased by a hungry bear, you'd be going and you wouldn't have time to breathe out for longer than you breathed in. So we call those 7-11 breaths, and Laurie Hammond taught me that. Then what you want to do is ask yourself, how is the pig lying to me? It usually lies, it tells you a half truth to be seductive, and then there's a bigger lie. So the half truth here might be, well, there is a genetic component to obesity. As a matter of fact, it's pretty high, but diet and lifestyle factors are more important.
Absolutely.
Right? And besides, if I was dealt a bad hand of cards, does that mean that I should give up and get as fat as I can? Or should I play the hand of cards the best that I possibly could? So you ask, why is the pig wrong? And you acknowledge the true part of it so you don't waste energy trying to fight the truth. Then you take another 7-11 breath. You should be feeling calmer at this point. You should be feeling less interested in overeating. And you say, well, what would make me feel happier or like a better person if I stayed with my rule right now? And usually you've set this up beforehand and kind of run through an exercise to figure out what would happen in a year if you could stay with this role. And you really kind of believe in the value of this role. But just for argument's sake, let's say if I don't have chocolate on a weekday, if I don't have chocolate on a weekday, then, and I do that for a year, then, I'll probably be at least 20 pounds thinner, and I'll have less worries about cardiovascular disease and diabetes and kidney problems, and my skin will be clearer, and my immune problems will be gone. And I'll feel proud of myself. I'll be able to be present without obsessing about food all the time. And you kind of connect to your big why. You connect to the reason that you're doing all this in the first place. Take another 7-11 breath, and then ask yourself, do I need to eat something? A lot of times the pig will present it as, look, you can have this chocolate bar or you're going to starve. And that's what overeating is about. But you can say, you know what? I don't have to have that chocolate bar and I still don't have to starve. So maybe I need a green smoothie, or maybe I need some protein, or maybe I need some fat, or whatever it is, whatever your dietary philosophy is. Sometimes you need to eat. Sometimes you just need a break. I worked with this doctor one time, and she used to drive over to the convenience store to have a chocolate bar because she was just overwhelmed. And I said, well, why don't you just take the same amount of time for a break? And it hadn't occurred to her because her pig was saying, no, the chocolate bar is what's keeping us alive. It's not the break. So ask yourself, what do you authentically need at that time?
Good.
Sometimes, yeah. And that's the essence of the technique that we use.
Oh, I love that. And I think that we are in alignment on a lot of that. Even though you're using the word rule, for me, it's not about a rule, but it is about increasing that self-awareness in the moment that you are experiencing the craving. If you were to just slow down for a second and really analyze what's going on in the moment, what is that trigger? What is that distress that's coming up for you? And then really, truly asking your body, what do I need? As opposed to what necessarily food. It could be food, and it could be something along the lines of chocolate, or it could be something that some nutrition that your body needs. But just taking that moment, calming yourself down, allows you to have even more of that self-awareness so that you can meet your needs, maybe not in the same way that you were doing before, maybe in a more healthful way. So I think that is so powerful. And I'm sure you tell me a little bit more about the study you conducted that maybe brought you to these conclusions. You saw 40,000 people, which is
Right? That
phenomenal.
was a long time. I didn't see them. I did a survey with 40,000 people.
But tell us about that, and what were the results of that study?
That's what led to that conversation with my mom. I intercepted 40,000 people at a time when internet clicks were cheap. And I asked them what they were feeling stressed about, because they were searching for stress solutions, and what foods did they have difficulty stopping eating when they felt stressed. And I found some correlations. People who struggle with chocolate tended to be lonely or brokenhearted or depressed. people who struggled with soft, chewy, starchy things like bread and bagels or pasta or even pizza, they tended to be stressed at home. And people who struggled with crunchy, salty snacks, they tended to be stressed at work. And I actually thought that was going to lead to the solution, because then I just asked people what they were eating and I would kind of know what was happening. But there were small correlations. They were significant, but they were small. And I kind of stumbled into these techniques instead, which worked to sever the link rather than solving the stress problem. And then, like, I would liken it to building a really strong fireplace. Like if the emotions are the fire, you could work to put out the fire or examine the fire, or you could build a really strong fireplace. And I found it was faster to build the fireplace. I still think it's really valuable to put out the fire or make it smaller. But I find that takes longer and people are less likely to be interested in doing it. It's more valuable in the long run to do that. But most people, because it can be painful, they don't want to do that. So that's why I focus where I focus.
Well, that's so fascinating that these correlations exist. And I've seen that with my clients as well. When you were kind of relaying, people who are brokenhearted tend to struggle more with chocolate. People who want salty, crunchy things tend to be stressed by work. And people that want that kind of starchy, chewy thing struggle with things at home. So I'm going to take that with me because I think that's really interesting. And I do see that correlated within the patients that I treat.
It kind of makes sense emotionally, because
Totally.
like if you're depressed or down about a romance or something, you want a little pick me up. If you're stressed at work, you might want to bite someone. You say you're going to chew this stuff. Please don't bite anybody. Everyone in the audience, please
Don't bite anyone, guys.
No biting. That's the one rule in Dr. Supatra's show. Is no biting.
No.
And if you're stressed at home, you might feel like you need something to fill you up.
Yes.
Help you with the anxiety. So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about guilt and shame, because that's a huge part of the work that we do. And many people struggle with guilt when they deviate from eating plans. Now you have kind of the rule, and we're going to use that word kind of loosely because it's a rule that these people are making for themselves. But what advice do you have for people who struggle when they deviate from those rules?
So this is big. Okay. First of all, in just kind of a general sense about the shame, there's nothing you've done with food that I haven't done. Just so you know, gone to 7 different drive-thrus and nobody knows what you're eating, taking things out of the garbage, doing things to it first and then taking it out of the garbage. There's nothing you've done that other people haven't done. People think they're alone and they're really ashamed, but they're almost never alone. More importantly, it turns out when you really examine that shaming negative voice after you've had a binge, that it's got a purpose. And its purpose is to make you feel too weak to resist the next binge. It's like, oh, you're so pathetic. You can't control yourself. You might as well just go to town, eat as much as you want, at least until tomorrow, right? That's the only thing that's going to make you feel better anyway. And so there's a secondary gain associated with the guilt and shame. And I like to say the pig just wants more. That's what's happening. The pig wants more. Then remember that there are no prisons for overeaters. You're not going to wake up in a cell with 4 gray walls and your new husband Buddha because you had too many donuts. Also remember that when food is your drug of choice, you're largely choosing to harm yourself as opposed to other people. People that drink and get behind the wheel of a car, they could maim or mutilate someone. At the very least, blow out the family finances. They're a real burden. It's a stretch to argue that people who have too many donuts are doing that. They're mostly hurting themselves. So I tend to find that overeaters are nicer people than drug addicts. I like some drug addicts also, but I tend to find that they're just more inherently nicer people. And then the last thing is, how can you commit with perfection, but forgive yourself with dignity? So think about an Olympic archer aiming at the target. They don't go, maybe I'll hit it or maybe I won't. They don't let go of the arrow until they see it going into the target. They commit with perfection. They purge their mind of that doubt and insecurity because it drains energy from pursuing the goal. However, when they miss, they don't go, oh my God, I'm a pathetic archer. I might as well shoot the rest of the arrows up into the air. right?
Mhm.
They analyze by how much and in what direction did they miss. What are the adjustments they need to make? This is why I like there to be a really clear bullseye so that you know exactly what happened and how to adjust it. And then you make those adjustments. You turn guilt into responsibility. You learn all you can. You absorb all the information you can from the miss. And that makes it easier to let go of the guilt. When you turn guilt into responsibility, I think that the brain holds on to guilt as a protective mechanism, like as a survival mechanism. I think that if you touch a hot stove, your brain is going to tell you that you're a pathetic hot stove toucher until you analyze what happened so that you don't touch the hot stove again, because it's worried you're going to get hurt again. Convinced that you know what to do to avoid touching that stove again, then it's going to let you let it go. So
Interesting. So shame can be a self-preservatory reaction if we bring consciousness to it and compassion, I would say. And I think that is so important. I also think that, and I want to go back to your work in the food industry. I think a lot of people shame themselves unnecessarily, especially when their diet contains more of these doctored, highly processed foods that are hijacking people's brains. What do you have to say about that after having worked in that industry?
I mean, first of all, my work there was 25 years ago, so this has evolved a lot since then. But there are evolutionary buttons they're really working to press. Something I like to call the variety impulse, because when you look at a field of vegetables and fruit, right? Let's say blueberries, red tomatoes, green lettuce, purple cabbage, yellow carrots. You're supposed to eat the rainbow so you get a diversity of micronutrients. You know this better than I do.
Mhm.
Well, in the industry, they know that. And I remember talking to the vice president of marketing for a major food bar manufacturer, who will remain nameless so I don't get sued. And he told me that they took the vitamins out of the bar because they were expensive, and he would put the money into the packaging instead, so it would look like it had all these vitamins. So they're preying in that impulse, but it's predatory. There are no vitamins like that, or very few vitamins like that in there. The variety impulse also works to keep you eating if you come across a field of vegetables with slightly different tastes, because you're looking for slightly different micronutrients. And so when they manufacture a bag of potato chips, it's usually on multiple assembly lines with very slight variations in flavor, so that the second chip you taste is going to be just slightly different than the first one, and you're going to keep going. And
Wow.
then there's plausible deniability, which is all the brain needs in order to justify indulging. Like, these potato chips are good for you, you see, because they're made with avocado oil. And everybody knows avocados are good and avocado oil is good. So this heated avocado in these potato chips are really good for you. That's all the brain needs, is to see a little star that says with avocado oil. And it's not in rational evaluative mode. So it just is, okay, stamp of approval, and let's go to town. Ignoring the fact that most heated oil studies show that they're carcinogenic, ignoring the fact that nobody really thinks potato chips are nutritious, ignoring the fact that when you heat chips, you can eat potato chips if you want to. I think we can eat things that are bad for us if we want to, but eating things that are bad for us and thinking they're good for us gets us into a lot of trouble.
Yes.
On most studies on heating potato chips or potatoes to that level says that they produce heterocyclic amines or acrylamides.
Yeah, acrylamides.
There's no way around it. It's not really healthy for you to have a bag of potato chips, but I would fight for your right to do it if that's what you want to do. So, I mean, and there are chemicals in some of the packaging that turn off your ability to know when you're full. So this is an obstacle to mindfulness. Like, we want to just eat as mindful as we can, but when you're trying to eat a bag of potato chips mindfully, those chemicals are busy trying to interfere with your ability to be present and aware and know when you're actually full. So yeah, and there are all types of.
So how do you help people navigate through that? Because these types of products are everywhere and they're very difficult to avoid. And do we avoid them? What do we do with highly processed food?
You start with an awareness of which ones you can control and which ones you can't. If I really wanted to, I don't really want to, but I could eat a bag of potato chips and put it down. I'm not a potato chip guy. I couldn't eat a chocolate bar and put it down. My sister folds up 2 little pieces and puts it back into her purse and says, I'm going to have the rest later. Uh, I don't understand that. Give me the box and then give me everything behind the counter while you're doing that. So I'm very aware of the things I can have and that I can't have. And I find that it's different for different people and it's different for different substances. So some people can't have sugar, but they can have flour. Some people can't have potato chips, but they can have sugar and flour. It's really start with an awareness. You start with a general principle that the more processed food you eat, the more processed food you're going to crave. And I tell people my program is diet agnostic. I'm kind of a whole foods plant-based person myself. But my program is diet agnostic. If you want to eat processed foods all day, I can't help you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's so important for people to understand what's going on with the food industry so that they can make that a part of their choices. If, they do want potato chips, there's a variety of types of potato chips out there. You have these super ultra highly processed, chemically altered potato chips, and you may have potato chips that you make at home or that, are just straight up kettle chips that you get from a restaurant or from a deli that make them there, and they're very different things.
And you
And
can get an air fryer and they
you can
taste
get it
almost as good.
exactly. That's why I don't have like food rules for my clients, because a lot of them struggle with highly processed foods and that kind of addictive quality in them. And I recommend them. I say, we don't need to take that off the table. You can eat that, but why don't you see how you feel from something that's more closer to the ground or homemade versus that? And a lot of times people really realize the difference in when they're really tuning into their bodies, how their bodies feel when they have something, say it's a pizza from one of the major chains or a homemade pizza, a very different thing. And that's why I think it's so important not to vilify foods, because people in Italy have been eating pizza forever and not necessarily struggled with weight or shape because of that. And so how can we increase people's mindfulness, have them understand and really gauge for themselves how food feels in their bodies and compare them so that they then can become their own best expert. And they don't necessarily have to say, I will never eat this thing again. I don't know if that's realistic. I don't think that's necessarily like a fun way to live, but maybe they can incorporate it into their diet in a more healthful so that they feel of that type of food versus highly processed foods. And it does sound like too, and we're very similar on this, that the rules that they're making, especially if they're behavioral, they're based in science-based behavioral change, which is tiny changes incorporated and put into daily routines are much more sustainable and are much more long lasting than these big giant changes or rules. So you and I think, have a lot in common, and we're aligned in a lot of ways. We just tend to use different terminology. I don't know if I'd ever use the word pig because I really love little piggies and I think they're adorable.
I love little. This is not like a wild bar. I know.
No, I know. But I think our terminology is a little different, but we really are on the same path and the same mission to help people really increase their self-awareness, become more mindful, learn how to tap into their parasympathetic nervous system, which I think is everything, because when we are really online as opposed to offline, we're so much more in tune with our bodies, and how to make these smaller changes last a lifetime so that they're sustainable. So, Dr. Glenn, I'm so glad to have met you and to know you. Please tell people how they can get a hold of you, how they can work with you, how they can find your book.
Oh, it's easy. It's easy. Everything's at the website, defeatyourcravings.com, and I'm delighted to have been here all, defeatyourcravings.com. If you click on the big blue button, it'll take you to a page where you can sign up for the reader bonus list. You'll get a copy of the book for free in a Kindle, Nook, or PDF format, or you can get to the traditional formats for traditional charges if you want. You also get food plan starter templates that walk you through coming up with your own food plan or behavioral plan. And I know that it's weird that Supatra has a doctor on with a pig inside of him. So I recorded a whole bunch of coaching sessions so you can hear what that's like. You can hear how people go from feeling kind of desperate and confused and hopeless to feeling powerful and excited and confident in just one session. So it's defeatyourcravings.com. Click the big blue button.
I love it. Dr. Glenn, I'm so proud of the work that you're doing and how you are helping people. I think that if more of us can do this, it's an inner work, it's an inside job. We may not be as reliant on external sources to try to get us to where we want to be in terms of our health. I think we're headed into some real weird, dangerous, not so great territory with a lot of these weight loss medications and just this
Yeah.
return to emaciation and thinness as the ideal. So the more that we can just really kind of delve in, ask ourselves the whys, and then figure out the how naturally, we're going to see a lot more sustainable change. So I really thank you for the work that you're doing out there.
But thank you for having me. This was delightful. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And everybody, thank you for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. We're looking forward to the next exciting interview. Hopefully it's as exciting and informative as this one. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Insight Podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.